recall, there was some impacted soils with arsenic. Those were found to be related to primarily the spraying of the apple orchard using old chemicals. We did extensive additional soil testing on the site, another 30 tests, and we developed a plan for mitigation of that. The plan essentially includes removing soils in some areas and placing them in controlled bermed areas. Those controlled bermed areas would be covered with clean topsoil. So once completed, there won't be any soils on the site that would be, any impacted soils on the site that would be accessible to anyone. We also are going to, during construction periods, monitor for air quality and protect the workers with a number of measures, wearing suits and wash down and that type of thing. All that stuff is spelled out in the FEIS. With respect to groundwater, we have located, this is the water system on the property. The thicker lines goes through the site. You see where it goes off here. The proposed water treatment plant and tank would be located up in this area, which is adjacent to the existing water tanks. They would not be visible from the road, and it is much smaller in diameter. It's less than half the size and height of the existing tanks. We did complete a full analysis of the groundwater supply and found that both quantity and quality is there. So we're in good shape with that. And we also confirmed that with the drawing of water from the wells would not adversely impact other wells in the neighborhood through those studies. With respect to surface water, we have an extensive plan for stormwater management and green infrastructure design. We have a number of infiltration basins throughout the project that are used to allow for infiltration into the ground for groundwater recharge. And then ultimately, we have stormwater ponds that controls the flow rate back to existing conditions, so we're not raising flow rates downstream that could potentially cause any flooding impacts. With terrestrial and aquatic, we have enhanced the wetland mitigation. Each of these colors on here represents a different vegetative community group. Along the perimeter, we are enhancing the wetland buffer using appropriate plant materials that would be complementary to the wetlands and would also tend to have the wildlife attracted to it. We also did a tree survey, and we will be transplanting a number of trees that are interior to the site that were found to have some value. I should say Spider Barber, the town's wetland consultant, did the tree survey, and he's identified a number of trees that we're going to transplant on the property to save ones that are in good shape, so to speak, and are transplantable. So the bottom line, I guess, is that we feel that we've mitigated to the extent practicable as required by the seeker regulations. And Mike wanted me to keep this to 10 minutes, so I think I'm all set. I'll be glad to answer any questions. No, I'm sorry. I understand you folks are going to provide comments now. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a list of names here. We'll go over them in order. If you do want to speak, there's another sheet of paper there. You can shut it down, Doug. I'm not looking at the whiteboard.
I would do that. You don't like that here, right?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to try to keep you to 5 minutes. If you see me waving like this, time's up. But written comments are always accepted. will always be accepted. We'll continue with comments for it. First up on the list is Ira.
Thank you. First thing I wanted to point out, which I believe is the most important comment I
Is the
have.
mic?
You're gonna have to wait until we get the mics working. Speak up.
Oh, okay. I never know if I talk too loud or too little, they never tell me. As the representative for the college said, there's nothing that this planning board could do to stop the IDA. However, the college has said they don't care about the IDA because if the IDA doesn't go through, they'll just take their tax-free status and the heck with us either way. However, the point I wanted to make, and it was my first point, is that whereas maybe you can't stop their tax exemption or you can't stop the IDA, you can certainly stop a project that will be detrimental to the town and the village. That's the first chore that the planning board has. If this is going to hurt the residents, and it will, of the town and village, then you have an obligation to protect them over the non-taxpaying college who, is controlling it and gets everything for free. The point being that, and I've said before, I would rather see them try their tax-free status, because the second they violate their tax-free status, they're gonna have to pay taxes. And they're not generous. They don't really care about the town or the village. If they do something that violates their tax-free status, they'll fall back on, we have an IDA. This is just a game. There's a couple of points that I want to mention. That was my initial plea, if you will, to the planning board, because this is not going to affect just the town, I'll tell you why, but this is going to decimate the village too, and I'll explain my thinking on that. Couple of points, and then I will sit down. There is a water project that the college is going to have their own water, sewer, etc. The town board accepted or made a resolution saying that if they wanted to, they could take that over if it goes bad. There was only one town board member that I remember who said something that says, well, yeah, we have the option, because the planning board attorney says, well, you have the option. And one town board member very astutely said, yeah, when 800 students come in here who are actually residents and demand that we do it, we're going to turn around and say no. So that's a phony, that's just phony implementation from the college. Now, the point is, a couple of points that I want to make regarding what I know about, which is the police budget and the police department, because I was involved in putting together the figures for the planning board regarding what we estimate would be the right cost to the taxpayers for the additional police. Despite what this report says, number one, we didn't pull that out of the air. We sat down with the police chief, who actually has the responsibility of sending out the people to maintain and protect the town and village, and his suggestion was at least 4, one officer for each shift, because remember, these 800 or so people, because they'll have friends and whatever, are going to be here 24/7. It's not going to be like this report says, well, only certain times. They're going to be here, and they're going to have friends. And we said, okay, we're going to use 4, all right? But we also gave the figures for 1, 2, and 3, based upon real figures, not what this report shows. If you look at this report, for example, it says the overhead on the police department is $8, okay? The last time I did an overhead report, which was not for this particular thing, but because for some town, the overhead on the police salary was 72%. And that's, it goes up and down, but it wasn't anywhere near $8. So these people are using the same phony figures because they didn't do the research. It took me about 2 weeks to come up with the figures I needed to come up with that percentage. And I've got them, and, you know, didn't go into them because, you know, it wasn't necessary. But $8 an hour is totally absurd. They say we don't need any more police. The per capita police on the campus, they handle less people per officer than we do. Now, the whole point is, in addition to this nonsense about the benefit, as I've said before, the only people who benefit from the college is the business, particularly in downtown, the downtown village, because they're the ones that are frequented. It's not going to be any, you know, change. They're getting all the money.
1 minute.
Okay. They're getting all the money. All right? We benefit nothing. And the point that I want to bring up, which was not brought in this point, because there's a whole bunch more, the college and Cuomo have decided to make tax-free zones within the village. That's going to reduce the taxable base in the village, again. So instead of having 62% tax-exempt people, they'll have 70 or 80% tax-paid people. How many people are going to have to lose their homes, be forced out of the village, so that because the college wants the students to get free rides? Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Next up, Don Kerr. Just when you get up there, just so Kelly and the person transcribing knows who to address this thing to, just state your name and address, and so she can get it into the record.
My name is Donald Kerr. I'm from the New Paltz. And just a couple of points before I make my larger point. I'd like to address the point that LEED certification and NGBS are equivalent. I take exception to that. I know that people from NGBS would like you to believe that, but there's a major difference, and that's why LEED is required at the college and should be required with this project. LEED certification requires inspection, in-person inspection. Did they do what they said they were going to do? NGBS, you check off a box. It's in an report. There is no independent verification, to my understanding. I don't see that as equivalent. It's kind of the difference between a pop quiz and a take-home test. To all the educators in the room, I think that the NGBS equivalency to LEED is not something that should be put out there as a given. That's a controversial statement. I would also just like to make a comment that we have a town agency of town appointees, and I appreciate, because I've been in a similar role, I appreciate the time. I've been on the other side of hearings like this. Appreciate the time and the dedication. We have another body of appointees in the town called the Police Commission, and we have a police chief. And I know there's a lot of figures out there with regard to the cost of safety and services. As I understand the situation, of the three numbers out there, the numbers from the developer, numbers from the independent commission, and the numbers from our police chief and commissioners, the one you're not really giving heavy weight to is the one that comes from our own police chief and police commissioners. And I just point that out. That's curious, and I am troubled by that. The main point I wanted to make, I think it's reflective of a large sentiment in this community. I'm in favor of this project. Sounds great, as long as they pay their taxes. I went up to Ulster County Real Property Tax Services a couple years ago and got the numbers on New Paltz. And because of a river, a thruway, preserves, colleges, churches, rail trails, 84% of the acres in the town of New Paltz are not on the tax rolls. The burden for the people who do pay taxes is proportionally larger than other areas. And that's why we moved here. We like the rail trail. We love the Mohawk Preserve. We love the college. And I think the relation between the citizens of New Paltz and the university have always been really good. And I see a lot of people from the university here. We've been friends. We've been good together. But I feel abused. And I feel an erosion of that good feeling and that trust by this project, by a situation where a for-profit project conducted by a for-profit, profitable company wants me to pay for their profits. And I'm not willing. I'm okay with the Wallkill River not paying taxes. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Thruway not paying taxes. And I'm okay with the Mohawk Preserve and the churches and the university. I'm okay with all that. But this is a for-profit project by a for-profit corporation that is profitable. And I'm not as profitable as they are. And I don't want them sleeping on my tax couch.
Thank you, thank you. One thing I will point out, everybody has a right to speak and everybody has a right to their opinion. When we start doing applause and boos and that, that's not good, fair, and equitable listening to the speakers. Let them speak, let them finish their speech. Everyone has a right to speak and right to be heard. And I just want to keep it at that level. If it doesn't work out that way, then we'll terminate the public hearing until we get it to that way. Thank you. Robin Cohen Laval.
Robin Cohen Laval, Cicero Avenue, New Paltz. I've been a resident of New Paltz for 40 years and a tax-paying landowner for more than 20 of those years. I work very closely with the transfer students who come to the college, and I think there are some misconceptions about what our student population looks like. A lot of people think transfer students are non-traditional older students who are just commuting to the area. But colleges all around the country now see that a lot of students go to a 2 or 4 year school and then transfer to another 4-year institution. We average about 60 to 70% of our students have come from community colleges, and this is a survey of those students who attended some programs and answered surveys. I crunched some numbers, and in the last 4 semesters, there were 923 students who graduated from community colleges, but 432 students who transferred from a 4-year college. Excuse me, the first group transferred from a community college, whether they graduated or not. But the numbers that were most shocking to me were the numbers of 17 to 19-year-olds that transferred to New Paltz. Not only not a non-traditional age for somebody who might be in their late 20s and ready and mature enough to have an independent apartment or a room in a house, but 20 to 21-year-olds made up an equal number. So there were 781 students who transferred here aged 17 to 19, and 715 who were 20 to 21 years old in the groups that I surveyed. When I speak to these people, and anecdotally, I'm speaking about people who are coming here, there are families that are very hesitant that their student maybe left the area, went to a 4-year school for a semester, and then realized, I really want to go to New Paltz. I want to be in the Hudson Valley, go to New Paltz, but I want the on-campus experience or the experience of living with other students to really get to know my new college or university. And a 17, 18, or 19-year-old, for sure, going into a community where they have to live independently with other people they don't know before they even make connections at a college is not only an isolating experience, but it can be not so much a safe experience for their maturity as well. We asked the students if they lived on campus. Again, people think transfer students all commuted, and 30% of them lived on a campus before they chose to come to our college. Other colleges are offering housing of a wide variety, unlimited housing to transfer students, and apartment-style housing, and we are way behind the curve in New York State. These students are being offered admission to Geneseo and Binghamton and other schools, and schools that have this option. We are in the minority that we do not have apartment-style housing contiguous to campus. That someone who's 17 transferring from a school would feel safe because they know they're living with other students. That does not mean that students still won't rent off of campus separate from whatever housing gets developed, and it doesn't mean that these students would be moving into Park Point. It means that that would free up spaces that we now have other students in on campus so that a transfer student can live in the residence halls and know what that life is like. We did a pilot project because were not able to offer any housing to transfer students in a few semesters of 2012. But when we did offer it, 50% of our students always want on-campus housing, and we can't meet that need. But when we took away some beds because we tripled freshmen, we housed in 2013, one semester, 51 students, the next semester, 88 students. Every bed we had open that we did the pilot project with, that we tripled freshmen in order to accommodate some transfer students, they were all filled. And this does not even count people who said, I'll go to another college because you don't have housing for me. When we surveyed them, last but not least, about whether they would be interested in apartment-style housing adjacent to campus if it were available, we don't have anything like that. We have suite-style housing. It's still not the same. Making that transition from a room and a dining hall and a room with a little living room and bathroom to a kitchen to independent living before you get an apartment. A total in 3 semesters that we did the survey of 800 students said maybe or yes. And so the interest will always exceed the availability. But we are now in a very competitive market, and when we talk about the needs of homeowners and their taxes, and I know because I see some of my neighbors in the area, our livelihood is based on the college continuing to be successful. And we are real, when I see parents and students walk away crying and say, we'll take our money to another county because you can't help us, it really breaks my heart. And I really think that Park Point will allow our current students to have a natural developmental transition to an apartment as they're mature enough, and open up housing on campus for transfer students and others. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonah Herron?
Hi, my name is Joanna Herron. I am a SUNY New Paltz student. I'm from upstate New Hampshire, and I went to New Jersey, Monmouth University, for my first semester. And I transferred to New Paltz halfway through my first freshman year. And I was lucky enough to actually get housing. I was one of the very few people who did, and it was the first time they'd ever offered housing to transfers. And honestly, if I hadn't gotten housing, I would not have been able to come. So I just want to speak to the importance of housing for transfers, because I know a lot of people who did not get housing, and I know a lot of people who did and are very happy and lucky to have gotten housing. And I think that it really helps integrate you into the community as a student to be able to live on campus, and it's a lot easier to get involved and sort of make connections that way. Whereas I think it would be really isolating to have to live off campus, especially I lived on campus at my previous college, and I think it's really important to be able to do that, and I'm glad that I was able to get housing in New Paltz also. So I think the apartment-style Park Point housing would be a great idea if there was more availability to transfers, and I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Holstead?
Hi, my name is Michelle Holstead. I'm the new Vice President for Administration and Finance at SUNY New Paltz. I grew up here in New Paltz. I'm an alumnus of the college, and I've worked at the college for 23 years. So one could say I've been a member of the New Paltz community for my whole life. I live in Stone Ridge now, but my parents and one of my siblings are still residents of the town. My youngest brother has 2 children in the elementary schools, and he is one of the high school wrestling coaches himself. Another brother is a business owner in downtown New Paltz. I have several close friends and extended family members who are landlords to students on campus. As you might imagine, aside from having a vested interest in this project as a campus administrator, I also have a very personal concern about its effects on the residents of New Paltz. I've only been a VP for a short time, so I'm new to this process, and I haven't been part of the conversations before now. But I have read several of the articles in the local papers. I'd like to address a couple of issues that I've read about. In one article, there was a statement that was made that said the students that would be attracted to this project would be new to this area and therefore would tax the infrastructure of the town, as it was mentioned before, particularly the police department. Another article claimed that there would be no new influx of students, therefore the economic impact that Wilma Wright cited in its first estimations would be too high. These 2 points are contradictory. It's my belief that this project will not only serve our students very well, but bring new revenues to the town. There are many students who commute from towns outside of New Paltz, like Rosendale, High Falls, Kerhonkson, because they cannot find housing in New Paltz. The Park Point project will bring those students in from surrounding towns while keeping current off-campus housing at capacity. There are more than enough students to go around to fill both places. The project will enable the students to enjoy apartment-style living. As Robin said, it's the next step to real-world living, and keep them close to campus. The connector road that was mentioned before in the slide show will enable them to travel to and from campus without taxing the roads that they're currently traveling on to get to school. These students will also hang around after classes and frequent the local businesses in town, like My Brother's Pizzeria, more often than they are now. Also, the modest number of faculty and staff units will benefit the economy, as these residents will also frequent area businesses. There aren't that many units that are 2 bedrooms, so they won't overtax the school district. And those units will pay full taxes. These units will enable our faculty and staff to play a larger role in the students' lives and become a part of the New Paltz community. And I know, as was mentioned before, yes, the business owners are the ones that see the direct impact of the students coming to town. But all residents of town benefit by the revenue stream that comes in. Whether it's a trickle down or a direct impact, there still is a great impact of having more students in this village. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Shelly Wright. I think I have all the easy names up front, so when I badger your name down towards the bottom, I apologize up front.
Hello.
Go ahead, Shelly.
My name is Shelly Wright, and I've been a SUNY New Paltz employee for the last 17 years. And I reside in the town of New Paltz on North Platte Corners Road, where I'm a tax-paying landowner. And I've been following this project from the beginning, and have attended many of the previous public hearings. And I would like to acknowledge the planning board for the many volunteer hours that you've devoted as lead agency for this seeker review and for the site plan review of this project. You've done an extremely thorough job, and I think, as I read through the FEIS yesterday, you've done an excellent job of answering a lot of the questions that have been raised at previous public hearings. Based on questions I've been asked in the community as I go about my work and shop and all the things that you do in your community, I've had many questions raised that lead me to believe that there's still some facts about this project that people are not clear about. And I just thought some of the numbers about kind of our current housing situation would be helpful. SUNY New Paltz has the lowest number of residence hall beds per student among the 8 SUNY colleges that are most like New Paltz in terms of academic programs and degrees granted. And in fact, New Paltz has 45 on-campus beds for every 100 students. The SUNY average is 59 beds per 100 students. In a few weeks, we'll be breaking ground on a new 225-bed residence hall. And I've heard individuals in the community say, look, New Paltz doesn't need Park Point. They're already building a new residence hall. The interesting fact is the planning for the residence hall began about the same time that the foundation purchased the land to build the student, faculty, and staff housing. These projects take a long time, and the need has existed for a long time. The new residence hall will bring New Paltz to 49 beds per 100 students, still well below the SUNY average. Park Point with 700 beds would bring New Paltz to the SUNY average. The new beds offered by Park Point and the new residence hall would let us serve students at a level already available on other campuses. The approximate to campus apartment-style housing that Park Point will provide is being or has been constructed at most of these other SUNY campuses already. As a result, the comparison really underestimates the housing gap at New Paltz relative to these other campuses. This puts us at a distinct disadvantage in what has become a very competitive higher education market. I still read and hear also that many in the community say that Park Point will allow the college to grow its enrollments, and this is just not true. We do not have the capacity or the intention to grow our undergraduate enrollments, and we have documented this in various communications and reports, both to SUNY Central Administration and to our regional accreditors. This is also stated clearly in the FEIS. SUNY New Paltz does not have the capacity or the intention to grow undergraduate enrollments, and adding these new beds does not allow us to do so. We've built a reputation as a residential college offering diverse liberal arts and professional programs and a vibrant campus life where students develop leadership, social, and organizational skills that complement their academic learning. We're one of the top SUNY colleges in the region and in national rankings. It's something that we can all be proud of as members of this community. And it's not always been the case about this college. Students are specifically attracted to the residential programming at New Paltz, yet we offer on-campus or near-campus housing to a smaller percentage of our students than any other SUNY comprehensive residential college. Park Point would provide an avenue to correct these clear deficiencies that threaten our continuing success.
Thank you. Shannon? Our road. Okay.
Hi. My name is Shannon Riley. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for SUNY New Paltz Foundation, and I've served in that capacity for the last 8 years. SUNY New Paltz Foundation is committed to its mission of supporting SUNY New Paltz. The college has identified student housing as a critical need, which the Park Point project seeks to address. The foundation purchased the land in 2007 with the intention of developing safe and proximate student housing, as well as housing for the college's faculty and staff. There were many options available to the foundation for developing the property. We chose to partner with a developer because this approach would benefit the town as well as the college in several ways. The town would have a voice in the process. As Michelle Holstead pointed out, the project will pay full taxes on the portion dedicated to faculty housing, and the project will pay taxes in the form of a pilot for the first 25 years and full taxes thereafter on the student housing portion. It must be emphasized that the foundation's land is currently tax exempt, and so every single dollar of tax and pilot revenue derived from this project will represent an increase in town revenue. Additionally, the project provides the benefit to the town of additional water and sewage treatment plants, valued at $2.3 million, which will be fully taxed. From the college's perspective, partnering with a developer offered the benefit of a shorter time frame when compared to using bonded state funds. We are committed to providing the college with the housing it needs, and if necessary, we'll explore other options to ensure that the shortage of affordable, high-quality student housing proximate to campus does not jeopardize the future of the college as a public institution, as well as one of the main economic engines in our region. It's important to note that the other options available to us would result in no tax revenue for the community. SUNY New Paltz remains positive that this project, as proposed, will result in a win-win for the town, the college, and its students. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Sherman, there you are.
I'm Mark Sherman. I live on Du Bois Road in New Paltz. Okay, I've heard a lot of things I've responded to, but I'm not attorney, so I'm probably going to do office part. But I did want to say what Shelly was saying about beds per students. I wonder about commuters. I question. I use statistics a lot. I used to teach it, but statistics can be used and abused. And I think of Geneseo, for example. They may have more beds per student, but I wonder if they have the same commuter population. So that really doesn't make a difference. But let me talk about some other things. I have some real concerns about this project. One of them being, and I brought this up before, the view shed looking to the west, if you're going down Route 32, is currently really beautiful. And I'm nervous about what buildings 2 or 3 stories are going to do to that. I haven't seen the FEIS, it took me long enough to get through the DEIS. But I remember there was some comment about it wouldn't affect the view shed looking east from the west, and that's great, but if it affects the view shed looking to the west, that's also very significant. I have real concerns, and I couldn't see the slide from where I'm sitting, I have real concerns about traffic on Route 32, Mannheim, which is already very heavy. The DOT has, with some wisdom and some questions about it, improved east-west flow, and you may have noticed if you're going north or south, you can sit at lights for a long, long time. And I've seen traffic backed up on North Mannheim, South Mannheim, excuse me, way, way back. If this adds to that, that's just going to be another problem. One question I have, and I haven't heard anyone bring this up, but maybe someone has, if a lot of this population in the housing is student population, what happens in the summer? In other words, there's several months of the year where the students aren't here. I just wonder what's going to happen then. If it will be sublet? Again, that's a question I have, I guess, more than anything else.
They are rented for 6 months at a time,
Oh, okay.
so there's no subletting in the summer.
Thank you. One thing that really does trouble me, forgive me, it's New Paltz. I don't think I was quite this way when I got here. I have become someone who just is very questioning, and I know this is biased on my part, corporations. I remember when Walmart wanted to come in, or at least apparently they did. They were afraid to even say so publicly, as far as I remember. There was huge opposition. When Marriott Hotels wanted to build on Mohawk, there was huge opposition, sufficiently huge that both things pulled out. Marriott clearly wanted it. I don't know about Walmart. I don't know anything much about Walmart. What I do know, unless I've missed something when I get on the website, is the 2 projects that I saw are located in Syracuse and Rochester. I didn't see any in small towns. I've been to Syracuse, I've been to Rochester. They're wonderful, but they are clearly not New Paltz. I am extremely nervous about anyone coming in here who has no real vested interest in this community. I'm a kind of person who trusts much more in local people who really know this community. I've seen so many times people who come from the outside who don't get it. And I'm concerned that Wilmerite doesn't get it. The major thing for all of us here is a quality of life issue. That's how this place looks, it's the way it feels to get around, and I just have grave concerns about it. I'm also nervous, and I'd love to see this make the New York Times, and who knows, maybe it will, because I think it's one of these issues that gets neighbor going against neighbor. There are people here involved with the project I like very much, but I feel the way I feel. And that's another thing that happens often when somebody comes in from the outside, because they don't live here, and it's not a big deal to them. I have concerns about unintended consequences. New dorms were put in on the south end of the campus. Students walk along Route 208. It is extremely dangerous. I'm on a committee that deals with transportation implementation. We have talked about it. It's a major concern. I don't know what that's going to do about safety, but I have a concern there too. This project will be a considerable distance from the campus. We encourage people to walk. People are people, they're human. I know a lot about behavior. It's what I studied in graduate school. It's what I taught for many years. And people will do the things that are easiest. Right now, if you want to go to a bar, why any young person wants to go to a bar, I don't understand. But if you do want to go to a bar and you're living near the bars, you're going to go there. If you're living at a distance, you might not be such a part of the social experience living at that distance away. I don't know. I'm concerned something about a sewage treatment plant. I'm concerned about that. I don't live right near there. I'm far enough away that if there's noise, I won't hear it. Maybe the construction I might hear. A 6,400-foot clubhouse. Again, I love young people. My sons are growing up, and I have grandchildren. They're growing up, but they tend to be a little noisier than people my age. Eventually, soon, I won't be able to hear anything anyway. But for the moment, I do. I don't live right there, but my sympathies are with people who do. I just have real concerns, and I think more than anything is the concern about a profit-making company coming in here, especially with a tax break. And that, as far as I'm concerned, they have to prove to me that their interest is anything beyond their own personal or corporate interest, and I don't see that. And I think the tax effects or lack of taxes for 700 people, by the way, that's about, maybe 8 or 9% of the current population. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Rich Winters?
Good evening. My name is Rich Winters, and I'm the Community and Government Relations Associate.
Yeah, I have to speak so everybody here until we get it.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Rich Winters, and I'm the Community and Government Relations Associate at SUNY New Paltz. I'm here tonight to express my support for the Park Point housing project that has been considered by this body. While I am an employee at New Paltz, my wife and I also received our undergraduate degrees from the college and have lived in the Hudson Valley for several years. Our family has a real interest in the future health and vitality of the institution and the community. As you may know, increased housing availability has been identified as essential to the region. Based on the overwhelming need, the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council has made housing a priority in its strategic plan for our area. Pattern for Progress, a nonprofit policy organization with more than 40 years of planning and support for the Hudson Valley, has identified this priority as well. The successful completion of this project would consequently increase housing accessibility at a time when it is both desired and needed. I respectfully ask the board to support the Park Point project through the final stages of its approval process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rich. Paul?
Thank you, Mike. My name is Paul Brown. I live in New Paltz. First of all, I'd like to thank the planning board members for holding this public hearing. It isn't mandated or required, but I know the planning board has been trying to get all the facts it can as it moves ahead. And I also thank you for having the foresight to continue this public hearing at least until the evening of December 9th, which shows that you're bending over backwards to make sure everybody has a chance to comment, which we're seeing tonight. It's great. This time is going to provide an opportunity for each one of you as board members to hear what the community thinks of the application of multi-billion-dollar Wilmer Wright Corporation, who is hoping you won't mention that as they proudly declare in their submitted final environmental impact statement, they will be seeking to avoid paying their fair share of real estate taxes on this for-profit commercial venture they have dubbed Park Point. They've tried for about 8, 12, 18 months to tell you what you can't ask, what you can't say, what you can't do. And I even heard tonight one of the representatives say that the pilot is out of your purview. Well, I hope to stress tonight and give you proof that it is not out of your purview. You have extraordinary powers as a home rule planning board in this state, and that's why we're all here to hope you make the best decision. Knowing that Wilmer Wright's environmental impact statement will not get any better, we all know that, the planning board has accepted the submission. But I'm here to say, while it has been accepted, it's totally unacceptable, and I think many of you know that. Certainly many people here know that. It's totally unacceptable because it is the big elephant in the room that is really separating the community, as Mark stated. What benefit and how much cost? 7 employees, students deserve the best. By the way, they're getting 225 dorms that were never mentioned during the whole 18-month process. I think that's a little disingenuous, but that's that. So this is a technical step, and it now allows you the acceptance to hold public hearings like this as you prepare what I hope you'll be preparing, your finding statement. It's authorized by Article 8 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law. You don't have to do a finding statement, but it's the only way you can divorce yourself from this debacle of an FEIS, which you had to accept to move forward. You can make the whole FEIS and DEIS and the buried appendices and the buried in Appendix S1 of the FEIS crucial report that you commissioned, all a footnote to your finding statement. And if you don't have a lawyer that will explain that to you properly, get one. So prepare a finding statement you must, since we all know that the Wilmer Wright proposal is in every word, sense of the word, unacceptable to the majority of the citizens. That's why we have home rule. Your finding statement gives you the authority to reject the project or to grant a conditional approval. If the applicant mitigates the disastrous negative impact, a tax-free status for the project would bring about to this community, to its economic vitality, to its social vitality, to its cultural environment, if they mitigate that, then it may be a fine project. Just as a teacher who accepts a submitted paper does not guarantee that a passing grade will be issued, your acceptance of this FEIS doesn't mean you're going to give them a passing grade. And it's clear to me, and I think to dozens, if not hundreds of others, that Wilmerite and their business partners, JAM of New Paltz, deserve a failing grade in light of the scathing report of the independent review of their claims about the financial impact on the project on our community. You had that independent survey done, that independent report. The outside consultant's report, which again I thank you for, because it was the planning board that required the outside consultant's report. They were called CGR, also from Rochester, trying to be fair. You made it in the path, you made the applicant put it into the appendices. It is in S1 of the FEIS, and it clearly shows that Wilmerite overstated the financial benefits to the New Paltz economy, despite the fact that they were spoken of here. It was a whale of a whopper, and they understated the cost of community services to New Paltz taxpayers, both by millions of dollars. That's the methodology. It was flawed. How can we trust a lot of the other things? But I'm only focusing on this financial impact. Couple this, the whole bad methodology as identified by your consultant, with Wilmerite's attempt to pay no real estate taxes for the next 25 years, or some token under something called a pilot, another boondoggle cockamamie idea by politicians to take the money out of our pocket, and you have a recipe for economic disaster for the town of New Paltz. It's great we have a democracy, it's great we're here. If Wilmerite does not pay its own way, they will wreak havoc on our economic and cultural environment. By forcing taxpayers to pay for Wilmerite's cost of community services, they will inevitably drive more of our residents to leave town, thereby destroying the diversity we all cherish. In a few years, only wealthy folks will be able to afford to pay school, town, and county taxes. The rest will migrate elsewhere. Just as open pit mining destroys the landscape, flora, fauna, and natural environment, and just as fracking can destroy a community's aquifer, allowing a $50 million plus for-profit commercial enterprise to force current residents to subsidize its profits is just wrong. We all know it in our hearts and minds. I believe even some who have spoken on behalf of the project. I've never spoken against the project. This is just...
1 minute, Paul.
It will destroy our economic and cultural environment. On the other hand, if the proposed project pays the taxes, we may get the benefits. I strongly urge you to check out a conditional negative declaration. It's in the Department of Environmental Handbook, Secret Handbook, page 94. The handbook says a lead agency has the discretion to decide whether or not to use a conditional negative declaration, called a CND, page 94. The handbook says seeker adds to the legal authority that agencies already have. Seeker gives you more powers than you'd have in many, like the subdivision earlier. The courts, quoting again, have recognized that seeker has an action forcing, I'm quoting now, aspect which may include the imposition of conditions to mitigate significant environmental impacts, and this is our economic and cultural environment, so long as the conditions that you impose are practical and reasonable related to the impacts. What could be more practical than expecting Wilmerite to pay its taxes? Wilmerite's DIS has been accepted, yet it is unacceptable. The town of New Paltz Planning Board can cure the problem through the use of lawful and powerful mechanism of a conditional negative declaration. I thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you, Paul. David, Dave, where are you? Oh, there you are.
Thank the planning board for this hearing, the opportunity to speak before it. For those who may not know me, I've lived in this community for 79 years, and I was supervisor some 20 years ago. This proposal for a 700-person apartment complex would increase the population of the town of New Paltz by 5%. If it was in the village, it would be 10%. All the studies in regards to population impacts are, except for farms and vacant land, all development costs, water and community service costs that have returns in taxes. Would Park Point be any different? Across the road from where I live, there's a house that's rented to 4 students. There's been minimal impact to the area. However, there are never less than 7 cars there overnight, and sometimes as many as 12. What does the management of this facility plan to do to be sure that there are only 700 living here, or will it actually be 900 or 1,000? Are there enough parking spaces, because there will be a need for 700 plus plus plus, and a resulting impact on water and sewer needs. While I have not read all the data regarding the water supply and distance from the septic field, and I have seen no data reflect the possibility that in a few years the septic discharge could impact the water source. We have one major sewer district problem in this community, and if one occurred here, it would be gigantic. I would suggest the builder be required to obtain insurance policy to ensure that this would not happen, and the town be an insured party. Also, in regards to the septic discharge, has there been any analysis of what the increase in the flow would be anticipated to the brook that flows from this area to the Walkill River? Today, this stream goes from a raging flood to almost nothing, depending upon precipitation and time of year. There are others who have more eloquently than I expressed the impacts in regards to housing values in the towns. We should anticipate that some percentage of the 700 plus residents of this complex will be vacating rental spaces in the town. Has there been any presentation by the builder in regards to what their anticipated rental charges would be with and without a tax reduction? And this compared to what students are charged for accommodations in the village today? I'm sure this was done, and I think that if this study had been shared with you, it should be. If it hasn't been, it should be. There was a medical facility built in this community about 20 years ago. And as part of that commitment, that they built a community center and increased the water lines that were not impacted by them. I see no proposal to do this, or will might. In conclusion, this proposal has the potential to have the biggest negative impact to our community since the Walmart proposal over 20 years ago. Don't let it be a negative impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. In keeping with the Davids, David Eaton.
Good evening. My name is David Eaton. I am the Vice President for Enrollment Management at New Paltz. As I said in a recent letter to the New Paltz Times, I mean, believe it or not, the longest serving member of the senior administration at New Paltz. I'm sure that buys me varying degrees of credibility with this group, given the ebb and flow of ongoing relations over the years. However, it does put me in a unique position to share my observations that are relevant to this discussion over the period of 33 years. When I came here, this was my 4th institution in 3 different states, fourth university. I've also spent time working with and visiting universities across this country. And one of the things that struck me as strange was that New Paltz lacked faculty housing, married student housing, graduate student housing, and apartment-style living for undergraduates. It's very unusual. I don't know if those of you who are not from this area realize that, but it is. So there's a large number of populations that we're not servicing. Also, I'd like to say as a precursor to what I'd like to describe next is that we tend to have kind of a feeling that what's good for the town of New Paltz, including the village, and what's good for the university are mutually exclusive propositions. They operate somewhat independently from one another. On junctures like this, we actually have to sit down and discuss what that interaction is. When I came here, again, in 1981, you could walk up and down the streets of the village of New Paltz. It's tree-lined avenues, single-family dwellings, 1 or 2 cars per garage or per driveway. Most of the senior faculty and many of the junior faculty I knew lived in the village, and people walked to work. But nature abhors a vacuum, and so do economics. And capitalism, as it does, worked very well. People came in here and using the principle of maximize profits with the lowest amount of overhead possible, bought up much of the property in New Paltz, and the character of those streets changed. They changed before my very eyes. David Lent knows well, because in the later part of the 80s, early 90s, we formed a committee. And I represented the college on that committee, and it was the Joint Town Village Housing Committee. And we did a great deal of research, because we really wanted to figure out what the dynamics were here. And the universal opinion, the rational opinion coming from that is that the college had abrogated its responsibility to service its students. And it implored the college to do its job and to build housing to serve the populations that it served, lest the village and the town continue to become kind of a shell of what they were at one time. We had an unfortunate Transformers incident, which put us behind for about 4 or 5 years. The PCB incident, as many of you may recall. We had to rebuild and recommission 3 residence halls. As soon as that was done, we began plans. We built Esopus, then we built Lenape. We're currently in the beginning construction stage of another residence hall. So we really have kept our part of the bargain, and we're continuing to do that. And what we're doing is asking for the support of the town and the village to allow us to complete the job. And also, I'd like to carry this one step further. The world has changed from the time that we originally started talking about what was best for the town and what was best for the college. The college was in an environment where it really didn't have a lot of external threats. And I think we've done very well. I think the college has really done well in terms of attracting the best and brightest students, the best and brightest faculty, taking care of its facilities, building its reputation beyond what it was for a long period of time. And we are now entering a period of time where we're competing having very significant competition with other colleges and universities, and they are providing the services that we cannot provide. It is essential that we be able to do that. We do need to offer those services to graduate students. We do need to offer them to undergraduate students. We do need to offer them to married students and faculty as well. So I implore you to consider that. There's much discussion tonight about why we're on various sides of this argument, but I think that there has to be some kind of common ground that will allow us both to move forward in a mutually beneficial fashion. And again, I ask that we enter these discussions and make these decisions with the best interest of all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mike, what do we got? Katz, K-A, got it right? Halfway right?
Katz.
Okay.
Sounds about right. Hey everybody, my name is Michael Katz. I am a village resident. I moved here 11 years ago as a transfer student. Love this community. In 2006, I bought my home here, and now I have a business as well. So I started a couple of months ago, and I'm here tonight because as a small business owner and a longtime employee of Main Street, I can't help but foresee a direct and considerable positive economic impact from the addition of Park Point. And I know that my business would certainly benefit from 700 new residents. And I'm sure that many other local businesses would also feel the love from the increased traffic. So I'm here to endorse the project, give it my support. And I also got to say, without mentioning any of the places that I formerly resided in as a transfer student, I have looked at the projects that they have in Rochester and Syracuse, and suffice it to say, I wish that this project was here when I was a student, because it's pretty nice there. That said, keeping it brief, I do think that Park Point will be a positive addition to our community, and I would welcome it with open arms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Peter? Is this your first speaking opportunity now?
Today.
Today.
Hi, my name is Peter Angelis. I'm the interim president of New Paltz Regional Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to come out tonight to represent the business community. Obviously, the business community in New Paltz is in favor of this project. And I recently read an article in the newspaper and referred to New Paltz as the Berkeley of the East. I can tell you about a month ago I had the privilege, I was in Berkeley. They do have projects just like this right outside of campus. I think that this is something that the common ground should be reached on. I agree. And don't let this opportunity pass you by. Do the research on it. Do what has to be done. But this project is going to happen. So, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Ariana?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ariana Basco. I'm on the New Paltz Village Board. I'm a former SUNY student. I was a SUNY student from 2004 to 2008. And I will say that I do believe we need more housing in New Paltz. I do see a lot of for rent signs all over the place, all times of year, but I also see a lot of single-family housing becoming non-single family housing, student housing basically, turning into that, and I want to see more families in our community. However, I also believe, there are so many things I want to respond to, but I will refrain and speak to you guys. However, I believe that the $6.8 million gross profit is something that we need to look at very carefully. And the fact that they're not going to be incorporating, I know the clubhouse will be geothermal, but most of this is going to be run on fossil fuels. And we in the village and the town of New Paltz have passed anti-fracking legislation. We do not allow anything of the sort. Natural gas is obviously the move that a lot of people are making, which I am dead set against. I think it is the wrong decision for New Paltz and worldwide. And the fact that this is a known project that is going to be lasting for the next 50 years, we need to be building for the future. So I urge you in your finding statement to, which I didn't know that they didn't have to write, Paul, but I didn't know you didn't have to write a finding statement, but I urge you to write a finding statement and to include in that finding statement the cumulative adverse environmental impact that this project will bring to our community. And when I say that, I don't just mean environmental, with that includes sustainability. I mean environmental that include our fiscal impact, include the traffic impact, include the impacts to our emergency services, which as a bartender, which is what I do in my second life, I see what the nightlife is like in this community. And yes, I think that this will bring economic development to our community, but it is going to be a large impact on our nightlife. And it's going to be more drunk driving, it's going to be more people who are getting in their cars, because it is really not walking distance from Snug Harbor. Little shameless plug there. It is not walking distance from those bars, and people are going to be getting in their cars and driving. And those are the people who are going to be making more money off of this community, but we're also going to be seeing an increased need for police services, and that is both the town and the state and the county services, because it is not just going to be our town police who are responding. Obviously the university will be a part of that as well, but we all know that there have been some issues with whether or not the university police can go off of campus, and we originally thought that this was going to be basically maintained by them, but now we know that the service will be extended. Another point, which Mark kind of spoke to, the DOT has actually stated that the intersection of Manheim and Main Street is the most congested intersection in Ulster County. And to think that there will be more cars going to and from South Manheim is just horrendous. And there will be more cars because to think about the people who are currently commuting, the main reason why people commute to campus is because it is cheaper to commute to campus. And if I lived in Newburgh or Kingston or, fairly local, I wouldn't leave the comfort of my parents' home and the amount of money that I don't have to spend, which I heard is supposed to be $775 per month per bed, which is where I got that 6.8, by the way. All of that means that these people are not going to be commuter students. And the new dorm that is going to be built, very recently I heard at a town gown meeting that there will always be triples on campus. And Shelly actually, I think, spoke to the numbers. I'm not sure if it was you or not, but the 49 beds per 100 students, and that this would bring it up to meet the standards of other schools. But the idea that there are triples now and there will be triples then means that this is a direct result, because when I was a student in 2004 to 2008, there was housing provided for transfer students. And I know because my boyfriend at the time was a transfer student and we both lived in the dorms, and he got housing, and so did other people we knew. So this is something that is a direct result of increased enrollment already. So if we're not going to increase enrollment further, it's already been increased. And I don't think that we shouldn't increase enrollment. We have an increasing population. I'm just saying that this has already occurred. So we need to keep all of these things in mind when we're adding another 700 people to our community, which I think you said was 8% of our current population, something like that. So definitely think about why fossil fuels are wrong for New Paltz and wrong for the world, why we need to have the cumulative adverse environmental impacts in your finding statement. And also, I urge you to continue this past December 9th. I think that there are a lot of people here that are, showing up today because they've heard about this, but only more and more people will find out about these public hearings and want to attend them. And I think with the holiday season upon us, it is going to be difficult for people to be attending. But I did want to say, good job on the 498 bed racks.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Rebecca Berlin?
Me.
There you are.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Berlin. I live at 14 Works Avenue. I'm a junior at SUNY New Paltz, obviously, and I'm also a current member of the Student Senate, and I'm also involved with a lot of other on-campus organizations. So I just have a statement that I want to read. So besides the geothermal pump to heat and cool the clubhouse, it appears that no renewable energy sources will be used. Basically, besides this pump and the promise to use Energy Star and to cut down on energy use in various ways, the project is entirely reliant upon fossil fuels. The developers will try to use as many energy-saving appliances as they possibly can so they can check these things off their list and call the project green and sustainable. These various attempts at being green seem like trivial items on a checklist to be crossed off, so that the bare minimum is done to make the project green. SUNY New Paltz likes to call itself a green campus, but in reality these efforts are really just a minimal attempt to be seen as a trendy progressive school. The project's dependence on fossil fuels will render it useless in 40 years, as fossil fuels cease being an abundant resource, and as the price of fossil fuels increase, leaving us with a shell of cookie-cutter McTownhouses. I think this project is an archaic design with little thought put into using renewable energy sources. With the renewable energy technologies that exist today, I think Park Point would be a big mistake. This project is a project of the past, and if we are to call ourselves a green school, then we cannot continue with Park Point. I question if the 732 beds will even get enough residents, especially with the plan to build new dorms on campus. The question I want to pose is, who is Wilmerite? Who is this company or this corporation that we're being told to trust? I was reading some articles about the Rochester Park Point, and I read that Wilmerite or a Wilmerite entity owes Rochester $22 million. Also, a trustee of the New Paltz Foundation is also the president of the M&T Bank, which the $2 million loan was taken out of to pay for the property, and $116,000 of interest was paid to that bank that year, which seems kind of like a conflict of interest. I'm critical of SUNY New Paltz will be able to fill 732 beds without increasing the number of accepted students, which would essentially increase our already bulging class sizes and put even more strain on our unpaid professors, further decreasing the value of our education. Wilma Wright has made it unclear what exactly the cost of living in these off-campus apartments would even be, although I've heard the average price could be as high as $775, which is far more expensive than off-campus living in town. This would phase out all the students unable to afford this luxury housing and create an elite area for those who can't afford it. Also, why is the New Paltz Foundation paying $2 million for a project like this when the average New Paltz student with loans graduates $25,000 in debt? The New Paltz Foundation should be finding a way to give even more scholarships out to students rather than spending $2 million on this project. Another point that I want to bring up is the strain on the police department, especially with the increase in sexual assaults. I know that when I walk home, I'm afraid at night now because of all those sexual assault increases that we've seen. So this is going to put even more of a strain on the police department. I believe that this project should be scrapped. Transfers are still looking for an on-campus experience, so I think that SUNY needs to go back to the drawing board and actually include students in the discussion of what they would like to see. Students should be included so that we can see a building put up that the student body actually wants. This means including transfer students in this conversation, including students studying things like environmental studies and environmental geochemical sciences, engineering, and including the sustainability committee, and students and groups devoted to such issues, including community members and their representatives, and the town and village board, and including the student government, among other groups. This is essential so that a project can be made that has actual support behind it, so that people can be proud of what is built and know that it is what we wanted as an entire community, rather than be told what is being built after the fact and after the decision has already been made. Thanks.
Thank you. Rebecca, you're going to hand that in as a written comment?
Yeah,
Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel Adaka. I've lived, owned a home, and worked in the village and town of New Paltz for 15 years. And I want to begin by saying how much I love SUNY New Paltz and what an incredibly brilliant and wonderful asset it is to our community. I don't say this because I agree with the utterly implausible threats that were made by Dean Benjamin and others who try to suggest that SUNY will pick up and leave or lose their prestigious status and desirability, especially as a small college, if they don't get all these dorms built by this developer now. And I don't say this because I have one iota of respect for the SUNY administration, which has, over the years, gradually usurped more and more of the money and the decision-making power away from the faculty and the students, and as a result, made one selfish, short-sighted decision after another. No. I say that I love SUNY New Paltz because they gave me a beautiful education and incredible mentors and students. And I love the faculty and students of SUNY New Paltz, and they're the ones who will suffer the most if the SUNY administration is allowed to make this very bad decision to let a developer with a history of foul play blight Route 32 South with rows of soon-to-be obsolete corporate townhouses. As a part of a good liberal arts education is learning how to do your own research and to speak truth to power. So I want to congratulate the SUNY New Paltz students who are here tonight. Not so much the ones who have been asked ever so nicely by the administration to show up here tonight to cry about their failure to find housing and pretend that Park Point is the only solution out there to satisfy their needs, but the ones who understand that the purpose of the university is not to sell them amenities, but to teach them to be leaders in solving the world's problems. And yes, it is the students who care more about how they live than where, who are the most upset by the way the administration is treating them more like consumers than innovators in a world where it is obvious that quick changes are needed for the survival of the human race. And I don't think I'm being overly dramatic here. It's obvious that, and a well-known fact, that in the community, that petroleum is going to run out in 40 years. It's also well known in the community, especially by the professors of the college and both the town and the village governments, as you saw here tonight, that hydrofracked natural gas is a very dangerous alternative because of water pollution and its seismic activity. We're not really talking here about one more carbon-consuming building. We're talking about, I guess, around 20. And
If that many buildings are being built for the eventual acquisition by a state university, the only ethical way to build them is to make them run entirely on renewable energy. They're talking about appliances being more efficient, and I'm not saying that this is nothing, but that it represents an incremental improvement. And in fact, all of their environmental concessions represent incremental improvements, and what we need here is a substantial change. We have the technology, we have the expertise, we have the excitement. Please don't kill it with this dead-end project. The students are racing a car that runs on solar power. Don't you think that if they can run a car that races on solar, that they shouldn't have been asked how to construct housing that would last a few hundred years and would already be built to use renewable energy and not to rely on fossil fuels and then have to be retrofitted? The decision not to involve the faculty and the students in the planning and execution of a project of this size, I believe, was a fundamental mistake and a profligate waste of resources and opportunities. They did not even really consult their own hydrogeology department or consider the water. First of all, because this would be a brilliant opportunity for students to research something nearby that directly affects them. And secondly, because there is a water source accessible from land that the foundation purchased ostensibly to benefit the students. It's an existing condition worthy of investigation from the standpoint of a very badly needed resource, not only for the students, but for the community. Because we're about to be taken offline from the New York City aqueduct and forced to drink water, perhaps, from the Wallkill. However, instead of using this investment to really free the campus from dependence on village water, the property owner, who is also the lawyer for Wilmerite, will be under this agreement, if it goes through, allowed to develop the water and then sell it back to us. I feel like this development is completely out of character with the SUNY I love and the SUNY that I came here for. There are questions about the legality. I don't really even want to go there, but there are some bureaucratic hoops, and from what we've heard, a few campaign donations to get through. I guess influence over board members. This is not something that's outside the purview of what Wilmerite has done. Apparently, as the mayor of Danbury found out, you just have to be a politician and tell Wilmerite that you want in on an action, and they will give you cash. If you don't believe me, go ahead and Google Wilmerite and fraud and see what turns up. You'll find the article right there. Certainly there are questions that could be asked about the sudden change of the foundation's mission statement from providing scholarships for students to providing housing, or like why they paid a price of nearly 25 times the price of what the land was worth at a time when students are struggling with loans and tuition hikes. Is my time up? I will send you the rest of my comments in a written form. Thank you very much for your patience for listening to me.
Thank you, Rachel. Tammy
Tammy Freeman.
Freeman.
I'm going to keep it really brief. I'm not feeling well. I'm a local resident, and I've been here for 13 years, and I am very supportive of the college. And I just want to say greed is short-sighted, and it might look great, and bigger is not better. And I just urge this planning board to continue listening to the public for a while before any decisions are really made. And this project will definitely impact this community in a horrific way. And keep listening to what the people are saying, because it's very valuable information. We might, even for the people that might benefit from this project, it might look great, businesses might do well, but the downside to this project are much greater. And I think we need to all look at that. And, I'd like to come back and speak when I'm feeling better. And I just thank you guys for having this and for listening.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. James Adver, A-V-E-R. Sabina Sarro. Guess they wore out. Kelly, we have anybody else on?
Gabrielle.
Bob?
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Eaton that we have seen polarized. Say again? That's right. The community does seem polarized, and we should seek mutual agreement on a lot of projects. I want to talk about two quick things. One is the road. Look, I haven't been able to study everything. I know it's a through road. We spent 6 figures on a east-west bypass. I hope the road going through this project would be dedicated as a public road so that we can hook up some later time. I don't know if you've addressed that or not. You know, I want to talk real quickly about segmented costs of real estate, income real estate. And there are costs. Every property has costs, and you can look at these things or guidelines. So much of what they get in income, I'm not a landlord, but I know real estate and real estate financing. Certain percentage goes towards mortgage, certain percentage goes towards taxes. These are little brackets. They're very important. And a lot of these things, heat, taxes, repairs, maintenance, they're fixed. And so the money that the landlord gets is not all his own, and those have to be paid. The first thing that happens when there's a reduction in income is it goes out of the landlord's pocket, so he pays that top segment. The next things are what you would call in a household disposable income. Those things are non-essential costs. You can't say to the banker, I'm not going to pay the mortgage because the rates just dropped. I had an oversaturation of market value and my rents had dropped. So the thing that goes out is, first thing is maintenance. Maintenance repairs. Houses start looking bad. They don't get painted. The neighborhood looks bad. And they generally have a reduction in value, which you could conceivably say landlords would come to the tax assessor and say, my property values have decreased because the whole neighborhood has gone belly up. And that affects the township. What we have here is Wilma Wright is coming in and is pegging their costs on what established rents have been in the area. Those rents have been established over a lot of costs. And you might say the only legitimate exception would say, well, guys are operating on old costs, and this is going to be a new project. Well, I would say right now that's a fallacious approach to take because I'm standing on this balcony with 3 people who have brand new units that they've put up. Matter of fact, one of them has granite countertops. So these are not people who are not looking to help people and have a nice place. These are really nice stuff. I'm standing here with the builder of single-family homes in New Falls who has done more to change the character of our neighborhood than anyone else ever. He builds beautiful homes with porches and knickknacks and little divergences rather than square Levittown-looking houses. So these are good people. And you know, you said that, you know, there's an equation. The village, that the college has been good for New Paltz. That's really true. The other thing is that New Paltz has been good for the college. And I hope that you guys believe that second part of the equation. This town has been good. I've been in the real estate business since I was a student at SUNY New Paltz. Back in I started in 63. I had a license in 65. Selling real estate in this town. Seen the board sold. People come to this community with their children and they would trust their children to us based on what the town looks like. And we have a darn good town. Anyone who says differently is wrong, dead wrong. The other thing is, if Wilma Wright comes here, and you guys are looking at seeker and fiscal implications, as you know, is a very valid aspect of seeker. If you're going to give these guys, Wilma Wright, a break and not have them pay that segmented, that fixed segmented cost, you're making an uneven playing field for the people who have sustained us all these years, built great things, helped the students, built great housing for students, paid their taxes silently, and they've done a lot of good for this town. And for the village, for the college to overlook that is sad. It's not right. And here's what I want to say. You know, I feel like Ronald Reagan. You know, we're counting on you. You guys, Wilma Wright is your child. You guys are tied at the hip to her. You know, I'm really worried about building a thing for the college, building properties for the college. It's on private ground. We don't have prevailing wage agreements. If the college owned it, we'd have prevailing wage. We don't have any guarantee of union construction. You guys could go out and make a labor management agreement. Right now with Hudson Valley Building Trades, they give you 15% off on labor costs. I don't see anybody rushing there. I don't see that reaching out from the college to say, what can we do to help the community? And this Wilma Wright deal isn't right, it isn't fair, and it hurts the community. Dr. Chrisman, I say this with the greatest amount of respect for both you and your office. I'm a graduate of your institution. And we are depending on you. We look to you, and we're asking you, please, tell Wilma Wright, pay their taxes. That's all we want to do. Just be fair. Please, Dr. Chrisman.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else that didn't sign up that wants to talk? Yes, Leonard.
Good evening. My name is Leonard Loza. I graduated from SUNY New Paltz with a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's in education. And I thank you dearly for that. You provided me the ability to have a good income, to buy houses in the village, to renovate and rent to college students. I've listened to what Mr. Gabrielli said, and there's a lot that I agree with. I listened to Mr. Brown, there's a lot that I've agreed with. I've listened to a lot of what Wilma Wright and the college has said, and that's where I had a problem. In one of the early hearings, I asked if there was going to be any expansion. They said no. Along came the building that was supposed to be built on the corner of Route 32 North and Plattekill Avenue, the Science Building. That was a surprise. Just the other day, I was told they're digging up a parking lot. What are they digging up a parking lot for? To put in a 224-bed facility. What happens is we need to know that this structure or structures that are going to be built are going to pay their fair share of taxes in our community. Whether it be the cost to send a policeman there. Those policemen will need a retirement for their life. Whether it be to send the ambulance people there, whether it be to send the firemen there. Its impacts on the garbage trucks that travel through the area. But we need to know that we as a community are getting a fair share and a fair shake. They need to pay their taxes. We don't want to be like the childhood story, The Emperor's New Clothes, and us, the community, being running naked down the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Once again, I will ask, does anybody wish to make any comments at the public hearing? With that, we will adjourn the public hearing for tonight. We will continue to hold the public hearing open at the next planning board meeting, which is December 9th. I want to thank everybody who attended the meeting for your patience, your lack of chairs, and seating ability on it, and you did put up with a lot, and it's getting warm in here. I would ask you though to focus if we'll accept written comments at any time while the public hearing is open. I will ask you to focus on the areas that we wanted to schedule the public hearing on, and that is on sections A with the soils, and E, the groundwater, and section K with the community service. Those sections aren't hugely long in the FEIS, but those are the areas that new information's come back to us, and those are the things that we're really seeking comment on. We will continue the public hearing open. If you've written up comments, please submit them in to the secretary tonight. If you don't have them with you, feel free to email them. We'll try this one again. The email address is planzoneboard, townofnewpaltz.org. So it's Plan Zone Board, Town of New Paltz, all one word, .org. Kelly will get them and circulate them to the members of the committee. But again, I thank you very much for your attendance and your patience.
Make a motion? Close it?
To close the public hearing? Well, we're just adjourning the public hearing.
Adjourning for this evening.
We're adjourning the public hearing for this evening. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Kelly? Eileen made the motion to adjourn the public hearing. We'll let it clear out and then we'll just have a quick discussion and let you all get out of here. Before my battery dies?